All right, guys, it's time to play Name That Graph. Name that graph, all right? So we're going to say that the graphs that we're going to be looking at are of this form. Y is equal to A sine of bx, or Y is equal to A cosine of bx. Of course, where the A is controlling the amplitude, okay? So the absolute value of A is equal to the amplitude, AMP, right? And the period, the period, the period is 2 pi over B. 2 pi over B, okay? So let's take a look at each of these, all right? Now the amplitude is hallmarked from the distance, half the distance from the high point to the low point. And that, as you can see, spans 70 units. So the amplitude is 35. Amp is 35. Now you're going to say, is this a sine or a cosine? Well, okay. Uh, Remember that the sine is going to start at the origin right here, okay? Whereas the cosine starts at its high point. But our sine typically, as we know, uh, kind of is starting on the upswing and then going down. So this is a sine, but I think we're going to have a negative going there as well. So we're going to say thus far what we're having is y is equal to negative 35 sine of bx. Now, of course, we're needing to find what the uh, what the value of b is. Okay. Well, let's take a look. All right. From here, going through, we are now covering one full cycle. One full cycle is now indicated as being 10 pi. So the period is 10 pi, and the period is given by 2 pi over b, which would mean b is equal to 2 pi divided by 10 pi, which would imply that b is equal to 1/5. So the name of this graph right here is y is equal to negative 35 sine of 1/5 x. That's what I'm going with right there. Okay. All right, let's go to the name that graph number 2. Okay. Um, Now I'm going to, I lied a little bit up here. Okay, because this graph does not have a translation vertically upward. This one does, okay? So, but it's still going to be a sine or a cosine. Now, all right, if you could see down here, it's at 20. Up here, it's at 60. So that's why we say my amplitude is 1/2 the high minus the low, which makes that, okay, 1/2 of 60 minus a negative 20, which is 1/2 of, okay, of 80, which makes that 40 is my amplitude. So I'm going with an A value of 40. Okay. My period runs from low point to low point, or high point to high point, which is indicating here that, okay, so here we are back, and we're trying to figure out the period. And from low point to low point is 24 pi. So the period is 24 pi, but that's given by 2 pi over b, which makes this b value equaling 2 pi over 24 pi, or 1/12. 1/12. Okay. Um, Now, uh, so what we have thus far is y is equal to, okay, question is now, is this a sine or a cosine value? Well, okay, it is obtaining its low point right on the axes, okay? Which is suggesting a cosine, but a cosine reversal. So I'm going to say that this is y equals negative 40, the cosine of 1/12 x, okay? Now, the only thing is that this thing has been shifted upward, okay? It's been shifted upward because otherwise, if it has an amplitude of 40, we down here at negative 40 and up to a positive 40. So we're going to say it's been shifted up to 20 units, okay? So that's what I'm going with as the name of that graph. Let's do one more since we're having so much fun with it, okay? And take a look at this guy, okay? Um, Now this guy seems to be translated upward as well, okay? Um, and it seems to be a sine graph. Um, and let's see, we can figure out everything we need here, okay? Um, so, rather than it crossing at the origin, it seems to be shifted up one. So we have a shift 1 unit upward, okay? Um, now, it appears as if we are covering from here. We've reached a low point, go back to our high point, and I think at this right here, it seems like we're going through one full cycle. So it looks like we are with the cycle covering from negative pi to positive pi, which would be 2 pi, which is the normal cycle. So then, since the cycle is 2 pi over b, then that would suggest that b is just equal to 1, okay? Um, so I'm simply saying, and now what is the amplitude of this thing? Well, okay, I'm going to pretty much take a gamble and say it's running from 0 to 2, so the amplitude is simply 1. So the amplitude's not been changed. This is basically your sine graph, so this is y equals the sine graph, no amplitude adjustment, so it's just the sine of x. It's just been pushed up 1 unit, so I'm going to say I'm going to go with that as the name of that graph. And you'll have fun with the worksheet that I provide, where you will be playing our favorite game of all, name that graph. So what we've got here is this first graph. His name is, okay, negative 35 sine of 1/5 x. The next graph is a variation on the cosine, okay, which has been flipped over and translated upward with a period adjustment, giving the graph name negative 40 sine 1/12 x plus 20. And this last one, which has minimal modifications on it, simply shift it 1 unit up. No alteration in the amplitude, no alteration in the period, okay? So that'll do it, okay?